you have to think about it this way. I know you love to think, but you have to think about what juice is that brain sitting in? Is it sitting in comfortable juice or is it sitting in hot, steamy juice? Because if you're sitting in steamy emotions, all of your thoughts are cooked by those emotions. They really are.
Hello, my friend, and welcome back to another fun filled week of 2017. Well, Sensei says this week is about feeling through your shift. It's time to figure out where you do or don't belong and commit. And to top it off, there's a full moon quantum eclipse on Friday. From my smartphone to yours, keep streaming for your weekly Namaste today. Welcome to Namaste Today, a soulful way to start your day. I'm Christopher Witecki, your host and spiritual life coach. Welcome back, my friend, and Namaste. Well, this week is going to be an interesting and perhaps bizarre week. And you might have thought the last 2 weeks were bizarre since we moved into Aquarius. Well, we have a quantum lunar eclipse on Friday. That means powerful shifts in power and belonging. And it can happen as early as Wednesday to as late as Sunday. In our segment this week, I'm going to talk about what you can expect for the quantum shift. And later in your tea time, I thought I would talk about the United States karma. I took a look at the United States chart and I found some surprising things. But first, let's take a look at the week and your 5-day moodcast. This zodiac weather is for Monday, February 6th to Friday, February 10th. Looking at your 5-day moodcast. Well, it's going to be a moody week, climaxing, of course, on the lunar eclipse on Friday. But Monday, it'll be sunny and shifting. You'll be feeling strong and ready to make your move. On Tuesday, it's cloudy and a little moody. You might find yourself feeling defensive. On Wednesday, it's cloudy and oversensitive. Everything on Earth comes to a grand stop. On Thursday, it's bipolar, sunny, optimistic. Suddenly, the world is happy. And then on Friday, it's sunny and quantum. The shift can go either way. Well, we have a lunar eclipse this coming Friday, and that means big shifts in your story. It may be a surprise, it may be an affirmation. In our next segment this week, I'm going to talk about what you can expect. Taking a sneak peek at the coming week, I'll just say it looks moody. Now, to catch you up, we are in Aquarius, and Aquarius means our frequency, where we want to frequent, where we fit in the vibration of things. It's where we belong. And everyone, once a year when the sun's in Aquarius, everyone figures out where they belong. Like where you belong standing in the room, where you belong in the family, where you belong in the company, where do you belong in this relationship? Do you belong in this relationship? Those are the big questions that we ask this time of year. And this year, the universe is pouring on some quantum energy, which is known as a lunar eclipse on Friday. This will be basically a tug-of-war between the sun and the moon. The moon is in bright Leo, which means our hearts fill up. A full moon in Leo means our hearts fill up. And the one thing about the heart is it has spiritual truth. So our own spiritual truth basically rises up between now and the end of the week. And as it does, you're suddenly really clearly looking at if your life is headed in the right way or the wrong way. If your heart is not in where your life is headed, then something's not good. Now, this is a step 22 quantum eclipse. This is at the pure degree of 22. 22 is the number of Aquarius. So this means that we're going to have spiritual shift here that we couldn't have seen coming. It's a dimensional shift, in my opinion, where the dimension of how we look at things will change. And even if you are correct in knowing where you belong, I still think you're going to be shocked by something, if nothing else worldly, not necessarily bad, just shocking, just unexpected, just something we didn't anticipate. And the reason we didn't see it coming or whatever it is because we weren't listening to our hearts. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole point of spirit. I think the more and more you listen to your heart, the less and less you are shocked in life about anything, and your heart also guides you along the way. So this week, it's kind of a moody week, like I started with, because we have been very intellectual so far. We've been coming at this from ego and survival and just trying to adapt to change. But our emotions now will kind of catch up with this. Literally, the moon in Cancer, which is the purest emotion can get, right? Like it is motion and motion sign. So all the truth comes up, particularly starting Wednesday and Thursday. And then by Friday, we have this eclipse. Now, remember, eclipses are very powerful. They can affect us 2 days prior to 2 days after the event. We only have 4 a year. They're very powerful. A lunar eclipse is one where our emotional attachments are yanked away from something. So we were attached to something and we get yanked away. It's Aquarius, so we're not necessarily attached to something that really is going to hurt us. It's probably an idea or an ideal or a sense of individuality, or we're attached to an idea of freedom. But the point is you're emotionally attached or not attached. Or the point is that you're heading for something that you're not emotionally attached to, and that shouldn't be the case. So this is going to be an interesting eclipse because I expect everyone to be in a bit of a surprise. And what's funny in this is that President Trump himself has a lot of this energy in his chart. And it's just so interesting to see a president with the Sun conjunct Uranus around when we have a quantum 22 lunar eclipse. So it's going to be pretty powerful. One other thing I want to point out is as far as the flow of the week is concerned, Monday is really strong. Tuesday starts to get moody. Wednesday, things stop. There's a grand square on Wednesday. So it's funny. We have a grand trine on Monday, then a grand square, then a grand trine accompanies the eclipse. And what this is go, stop, go. Okay, so we're going to kind of, it's almost like things will go into slow motion Wednesday, Thursday, giving you a chance to really look at your life and feel through it and go, hey, where do I belong? And depending on your zodiac sign, you're definitely dealing this belonging at least in one of your 12 stories. So don't expect to get a lot done in the middle of the week. And I would say you'll know truth by Friday, but you don't necessarily want to act on any of those truths until the following Monday. Okay? Anything else with my notes? Yeah, the last thing is just that there's a grand trine in fire on the day of the eclipse, and it looks like that means passion is going to be what rules. So Sensei says the way to kind of just slide through this week as easy as possible and let the old layers come off is to simply stay in your heart. Because this full moon in Leo is ruling what should be cut and what shouldn't be cut. It is the moon in Leo. It is our heart. And you may be wanting to go into fear this week because I'm assuming the world's going to go through some interesting stuff too. I know President Trump is kind of a part of this, and I think that we're having a lot of veils lifted right now and things changing. But if you can just stay in your heart for the week, I say you're going to be on target, and you will find yourself maybe even fascinated by what manifests. Eclipses are so interesting. It's like people win new cars, you know what I mean? Good stuff and bad stuff. So it'll be an interesting week. Now, with all this, it got me curious. President Trump and all the changes, he is a Uranus president, basically. And I thought I'd take a look at the United States chart, and I saw some interesting things. So go steep yourself some tea, and let's have our weekly tea time. Hello, my friend, and welcome to our tea time. Today's tea time topic is the United States karma. So I had spent plenty of time looking at President Trump's chart and seeing how he's basically a firecracker spiritually. He is. He's wherever he lands, he's meant to kind of blow things up, to be honest. But a master, I'll just say that, according to his chart, a master in many ways. But I thought, you know what, let's put the president down. Let's look at the United States chart. And a couple things actually surprised me. So I thought this would be a good topic to talk about right now, seeing as we're looking at the big picture. Well, for starters, if you don't know, the sun is a Cancer, July 4th, 1776. I personally believe the United States has a Sagittarius rising based around 5:17 p.m. Final signature time of the Constitution. Final signature would be the moment of birth, not the first signature, by the way. Just my own theory there as far as the astrological debate on time. And what that means is that Saturn is in our first house. In fact, the galactic center, the eye of God, is in the first house of the United States chart, which means, not to pat United States on the back, but United States is supposed to be here scoring a touchdown for the big picture. The galactic center, our ego is for the good of all, and it's designed that way. Doesn't mean we're there yet. But Saturn in our first house means that the United States is basically in a once every 30-year transit where we change our identity. We change what we chase after. We change how we defend ourselves. We change what our story is. It's Sagittarius, so it's a new story, which we've changed many times, if you think about it. And it's a very powerful transit. Any astrologer would tell you if you have Saturn in your first, you're going through a tough time. The universe is making you grow up and make better decisions. So the United States is in this sort of karma now. Another interesting thing I saw was that the United States has Chiron at 20 degrees in the fifth house. And Chiron in the fifth means that our nation was born from broken hearts. So that's kind of an interesting thing. We have the karma of a broken heart. We have the karma of ego involved in a broken heart. So you could say, what is our karma if we're a brand new country? All the people who came together, to form the country, all collaboratively had a broken heart, is what Chiron there would say. And that it's our legacy and destiny to heal our hearts. So the spiritual energy behind the country is a broken heart that wants to be healed, which is very interesting. Now, Uranus, which is the planet of President Trump, okay, Uranus is actually has crossed our Chiron, our sore spot, since President Trump went running for office. So our whole deep wound of whether or not our heart will be let down again or not has come to the surface karmically. And by the way, this happens once every 86 years. So our heart wasn't struck like this. The last time the United States heart was struck like this was right before World War II. Okay, Adolf Hitler, last time our heart was struck in our core wound. So it's interesting, too, to know that we had a heart thing going on when we went to World War II. Well, our heart did go out to the world, I think. But Uranus over Chiron, that does mean that you're kind of being forced to heal a certain wound. And it also means that the solution, it's at 20 degrees, the solution is to follow our feelings and follow our heart. So when you come from a broken heart, the answer is you follow your heart. So we need to keep that in mind. Another interesting thing is, of course, we have Pluto in the second, and that's been there for a little while now, and that's our financial uncertainty. And the United States is going to go through financial uncertainty for some time, particularly as it leads up to Pluto conjuncting Pluto, which has been what I've been reporting on. 2020, 2024 is when that's going to happen. But what's fascinating is, since last September, okay, when Jupiter went into Libra, because we have Libra in our 11th house, our house of society, that means the United States is expanding and redefining its definition of the world and its definition in the world. So the United States itself is trying to figure out where it belongs in the world with Jupiter there. And when Jupiter goes into Scorpio, which is next year, we're going to go through a karma transit. I don't really want to think about that right now, but I do know that this year, looking at the United States chart, this year looks like we're exactly where we need to be. And indeed, it looks like we are redefining. Now, who defines the country? The people do. The people define the country. And look at how we are, like historically, only in certain times, look at how we are rising up. It seems like protest, seeing protests on the news now is like the 70s. It's like as common as everyday news, right? And we'll see if this continues, but we're certainly changing, and we're certainly falling into, I think, what we need to do. What's interesting is looking at the upcoming eclipses. That's the last thing I want to talk about. We have a lunar eclipse on Friday in Aquarius, and that's going to hit the United States in the third house, which means that probably some bad news comes out, some sort of shift in policy, some sort of dramatic something. And it might be that truth comes out. It might be that some sort of system we had falls away. Whatever it is, it's going to be intellectual. It's going to be probably something in our minds that we hear about, information. And what's interesting also is the solar eclipse at the end of February is in Pisces, and that actually falls in our third house. No, that's going to fall in our third house also. And what it is going to be like a big dose of compassion energy that lights up. So it's kind of like the United States has sort of harsh things fall apart in its intellect and its communication, and then there's a real powerful, compassionate part of us that comes out. In our natal chart, which is very interesting to me, if you follow astrology, and if you don't, and sorry folks, I want to get a little nerdy this time. I found what's interesting in the eclipses of the United States. So the United States has a prenatal solar eclipse in Pisces at 0 degrees. That means that the United States is a country that is actually here to serve spirit, but it's at 0 degrees, which means when we were born, we were not serving spirit. Okay, like not at all. It also means that there's a part of us that's going, and one day we're going to. A zero is interesting. It's like completely off and then completely on. It's Scorpio, is what zero is. So, what's interesting is the solar eclipse that happens at the end of the month in February conjuncts the United States sleeping solar eclipse. All right. In fact, Washington was a Pisces, most likely. So he kind of was it's funny that a Pisces started it and we have this sleeping 0 degree. The other interesting thing I saw, so that's our solar eclipse. It might open up. The other interesting thing is the lunar eclipse then is that is 15 Leo. And what that means is that our country has the karma of not loving itself. Interesting. And it's like, really? You think we did love ourselves? All we do is talk about how great we are. Yes, talk about. Like, I don't think we're in our hearts. And I think we're not in our hearts because we have Chiron in the 5th house. We're a culture that comes from a broken heart, but is very emotional. Okay, and we look to be friendly to the world, Sagittarius. But the truth is that we, our nation, our people, probably all have somewhere broken hearts. And the solution, the lunar eclipse, is to be mindful of our heart and operate from our heart. I think when we operate from our heart, that sleeping solar eclipse in Pisces will awaken, and the United States will be a leader for compassion. I don't mean to be like an extreme patriot or anything, but I've always really felt that, in the global story of the earth, it was one day destined that the people all come together under one roof. And I think that the United States represents that notion. It's not that we're better. It's that we have the karma, I think, of representing society at its cutting edge. And we often screw up and slow down and hold up the ball. You know what I mean? And money and politics and everything else. But it is an interesting time. And whatever we do here, here's the interesting thing, and I'll close with this. Whatever President Trump's term is pretty much going to define the United States' character for the next 30 years. So the way we respond right now, it's not so much what he does, but the way you respond and what you show up for is super important. So I recommend you do it because you'll kind of go down in the nation's character. All right, my friend. Well, that's fun to talk about. I love talking about stuff like politics and astrology. That's like two fun things coming together for Sensei. Hey, if you're interested, I have February megascopes available for immediate download at SeriousJoy.tv. These are amazing. I ramble on. I don't ramble. It's very succinct. For each of the 12 signs, basically a prediction for February. It's an MP3. You can listen to it, and it's accurate. And I kind of went off preaching a little bit. They're pretty long, 25 minutes or 30 minutes. Again, you can catch them at SeriousJoy.tv. And as always, if you're on YouTube, please be kind and do subscribe. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I'm at CWateki. And I also do an audio blog 4 days a week at SeriousJoy.tv. Well, friend, be careful. We have an eclipse coming up. Don't do anything too crazy a couple days before or a couple days after. Observe and listen to your heart. And I'll be back next week on video, but back tomorrow with audio. Until then, remember, I love you and live, love, be.
You have to think about it this way. I know you love to think, but you have to think about what juice is that brain sitting in. Is it sitting in comfortable juice, or is it sitting in hot, steamy juice? Because if you're sitting in steamy emotions, all of your thoughts are cooked by those emotions. They really are.